You're watching Tea with Katriel, a Hard Vibes Media production. Tea with Katriel, Wednesdays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard. Last week on Tea with Katriel.
Fathers, man, you're important. You're needed.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You're needed,
yeah. Definitely. Men are definitely needed with our youth today because they're so, and in Canada it may be a little bit different, but here in America it's just so bad with our young people out on the streets and drugs and guns, and then the killings is just unbelievable.
Oh man. Very interesting topic. Still on the topic on fatherhood and the importance in the community. We're going to take a break and we'll be back.
Stay tuned as we continue the conversation on Tea with Katriel.
Society Today's Show, presented by Hard Vibes TV.
Deep-seated prejudice as a result of historical things or for whatever reason, and until we realize that we can't keep going back to the things if we want to make progress.
Society Today's Show.
And we all have to work together as one.
A Hard Vibes Media production, bringing communities together, discussing real issues with real people in today's world.
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for your patience and your participation in this very important topic. As you all know, every parent is important, whether you be a father or a mother. But today we're focusing on the importance of men in our community, the importance of a dad rather, in our community. Continuing the conversation with Mr. Earl Bradley. Back to the top. And
how they're just killing it. And I think the reason for that is because there's no men in it. There's no man presence there to teach these boys that, hey, toting a gun and doing drugs is not the way to go. You need somebody to really be there to teach you that. And that's why a positive role model. Instead of, and it's different though when you live in the suburbs and you're way out than when it is when you live in the urban areas, because I grew up in the urban areas, but I don't live in the urban areas now. But when I was a kid, I grew up in the urban areas and I came up in, tough streets. St. Louis, Missouri, I was born and raised and everything in St. Louis, Missouri. And it was, the streets wasn't as bad as they are now. Because back in those days, you didn't have all the gun toting and the drugs going on, but it was probably something going on, but I wasn't aware of it as a kid. But in today's, it's just terrible. I mean, it's like, well, where are the men? Because I see boys that say, pull your pants up. What's the deal with your pants? That's not cute. And my boys right now, every now and then, my one that's here now, every now and then he'll try to get that little sag. And boy, I'll be like, not here. You're not gonna be sagging because you need to pull your pants up. You need to be decent. You need to carry yourself in decency. I say, because if you're running around looking like that, you got bandanas, then you kind of, people stereotype.
Perception, yes.
Right. They will get the wrong perception. And even though you're a good kid,
right,
they don't see it that way. They see, well, there goes one of those kids, And so you really need somebody, and that's what you need, somebody to really, tell them, hey, that's not the right way to go. That's not, hanging on the corner and doing that, that's not the way to go. What you should be doing is going to school, getting an education, and preparing yourself for your future. That's the way you should go. Yeah.
So, like, you see when you talk about like preparing for the future and all of that, I'm just thinking like I've heard this saying a lot, where people say the reason why we have a lot of issues today is because there are really no dads, or better still, even though they're, how do I put it? I'm trying to be politically correct here and not to offend anyone, but when you have boys having babies or babies having babies, so basically, let me put it this way, you have children who grew up in a home where they didn't have that access to a male role model, a good male role model, to show them or to teach them how to, carry out the things as duties as a male should, or teach them sports, take them to sports events, or even teach them how to treat a woman, right? And then they grow a little bit older or teenage years, and they start dating, or even when they grow older than that, and then they have babies, and they don't have the tools, they don't have the skills, right? They don't have the vision of how a guy, a man, should carry his home, carry his children, how a guy should treat his wife or his partner, right? So for those, maybe there are people watching right now who, they probably wish they had a male figure that could really mentor them. What advice would you give to them? Basically, what tools, simple tools? I know there is no specific formula for parenting or for, you know what I mean, in this world, but what tools would you want to give to them to help them, like, start off with gaining that positive,
Well, the first thing I would say is probably think positive. You should really, it doesn't make any difference whether you got a man or a woman around that's raising you. You know the difference between right and wrong.
Right.
You automatically, if you stick your hand in fire, you're gonna get burned.
That's right.
So it starts off with the person themselves. You have to really say, okay, let me evaluate myself. And think about the positive things. Be positive, think positive, get positive. Think negative, do negative, get negative. So that's part of it. But if they don't have anybody around, it's pretty tough for boys that don't have, that are unfortunately in situations where they don't have role models, and it's a shame on the men that we're not stepping up to the plate to help guide these young kids and try to help them. And not just boys, girls too, because I keep saying boys, but it's girls too, because girls fall into bad situations too, and that could be quite devastating. But I would say you probably need to seek God. Your relationship with, honestly, if you seek God, like I said, I didn't have a father coming up, but I was always brought up in the church. When I got to it, so I was brought up in the church, and so pray, God help me, God show me which way I could go. The worst thing in a person's life is to have a Father's Day or a Mother's Day, or a Father's Day, and wake up and you don't have a father.
You don't have a father.
And you see all these other people, celebrating fathers, and even at my age today, I still feel hurt. I feel hurt behind the stomach of, man, I've never really been able to buy a Father's Day gift. I've never been able to do those. So that lacking of that being there, not having that there, is really devastating. It really is. But at the same time, you have to remember that you are in control of you. And nobody's forcing you to do, and some of it is really just choice. You're making the wrong choices, and some of it it's the wrong choices. A lot of it is peer pressure. The peer pressure, following the lead of other people. That's what's cool. Let me do this because that's cool. Let me do what they doing. And so a lot of boys and girls get caught up in that type of situation. Where they're doing that too. So it's really hard. It's really hard when you don't have anybody to really look up to. So you have to really just make the choices really on your own, and that's pretty tough. But what I would say is that surround yourself with positive friends, positive people. Think people that are doing. If you people are doing wrong, then you shouldn't just be hanging with those people. You should not be saying, well, I'm gonna follow behind them because everybody say, oh, well, you a dark because you don't do this, or because how kids can be pretty cruel, and they don't have no filter whatsoever. They don't have, and so that gets pretty tough. And so a lot of times people say you try to get in where you fit in,
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm gonna fit into. Well, you don't have to get in where you fit in. What you need to
Mm-hmm.
do is you need to get in where it's positive.
Mm-hmm.
See, because if you look around and see all of the people, all of the young people that's dying, and that's on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
Girls get exploited when they go out there. They get
Yeah.
exploited for sex and
Yes.
prostitution, and they get caught up in drugs, or they get caught up with abusive men that are beating on them, and you know, it's terrible.
Mm.
It's really terrible. So I would say put your trust in God. If a young man's listening to me now, first thing my main advice is establish a relationship with God. Get into it. Get into a church.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to get any better than getting in the church. A lot of people in today's society, they don't know anything about church. I know kids that don't know anything about what's church, what's that,
Yeah.
and really, I mean, they know about the church being there, but they don't know anything about God.
No.
And
Mm-mm.
they just and it's just not part, like a person like me and you. That's, I mean, you pray, you sing, you do everything in
Yes.
ministry. I pretty much do the same thing. I go to church, I participate in stuff at the church. But some kids, they just don't, because they're parents. And like you
Yeah.
said, you got kids raising kids. So if a kid that was brought up wasn't brought up in it, then it's even
Mm-hmm.
worse for the next generation coming up behind them, because now you got a generation that hasn't disciplined their child,
Mm.
haven't taught their child,
Mm.
really haven't really nourished the child, because they're a child themselves. They don't have a parent nourishing them. How are they going to nourish a child that they're bringing up? It's a pretty tough. So it's like a cycle, like the
Mm-hmm.
song that it's
Yes.
just like, it's like I'm going in cycles. It's just like a cycle. But at some point, somebody's got to break the cycle.
Break it. Yes.
You got to break that cycle, and you got to apply yourself. And me myself, that's what I did. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have that father figure there. I said, you know what, I got to apply myself to. I want to do this, and I want to do that, and I want to stick to that. I don't I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to be I don't want to be locked up in a jail cell.
Right.
And then you got to do the things that won't get you locked up in a jail cell. So it's just basically, when you don't have anybody, you have to really, you can go to Facebook. There's plenty of outlets out there,
Yes.
that you can get information,
Mm-hmm.
that you can read on about fathers, mothers, or whatever, or programs that you can get in that'll help you. So you need to look for
Mm-hmm.
those things, and you can still. There's always a way, and the
There's
main way, God will make a way out of no way.
right. There's
See?
always a way, and God will make a way out of no way. And
Yes.
that's true. That's true. And
Hmm.
I like what you said, where you said, have a relationship with God first, right?
Hmm.
Because God is like, he's for me personally, I always say God's my mentor. You know what I mean? Because then when you have that relationship with God, the Holy Spirit is able to help you, like guide you and lead you, even when you're faced in decisions whereby you feel like you don't even know what's the right decision, right?
Right.
As long as you
Hmm.
have that relationship with God, um, you're good. you know
Thank you.
so yeah, that makes sense. But for those children, or for those adults who grew up without having a male figure, a good role model around, like what Mr. Earl said, he said, find someone that can positively, basically, impact your life.
Hmm.
And for me, I had to learn the hard way. The one thing that I noticed is the best way for you to find who can positively, impact your life is, first you have to observe. You have to
Hmm.
watch and observe.
Right.
Observe the person's lifestyle, their morals, their values. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
you have to have some kind of spirit of discernment. So for those of you
Right.
that don't know what discernment is like, when you're able to tell like something is off. Let me just put it that way. You know what I mean? Like, you can tell, like, okay, something is not right. That's a spirit of something like that. It's kind of like discernment, right? So
Hmm.
you have to observe, okay, the character, check for the fruits of the spirit and all of that.
Hmm.
And before you can dive into that mentor, role model kind of relationship.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Definitely. Hmm.
Is there
I agree
anything
with
else
you.
you would like to add to this?
No, no, I just no.
Oh
I
my
mean,
God.
honestly, though, no. Being a positive role model for the men that are listening and the men that are watching it requires a lot of dedication. You have to be committed. There's
Mm-hmm.
just you can't be a part-time daddy. You can't
Ooh.
be a part-time father. You can't. You
No.
have to. There's too much out here in the world
Mm.
that could just totally devour your kid, and your kid is exposed to so much, especially
Mm.
with the internet and the different
Yes.
things on the
Yeah.
internet. So when you're trying to keep your kids, and I always tell my wife this because she thinks she can keep the kids away from stuff by taking their phones. I say you're not keeping them away from anything because they're going to find a computer, they're going to find an iPad, they're going to go with their friends, they're going to look at the friend's phone. So when you're disciplining the kid, it should be a meaningful way. It should be
Right.
something that's meaningful instead of something just because I got the power to do it. I'm not
Mm.
talking about my wife. So let's
Right,
clear
right.
that up
But in
right now.
general, yes, yes,
but,
of
but when she
course.
watches this, I want to make sure she
No,
knows that.
it's
But
fine.
I'm just
Mm-hmm.
saying, in particularly, but yeah, you need to the men we just need to step it up. You can't
Mm.
be a part-time dad. It's a full-time job.
Mm.
It requires you putting in time with your kids.
Mm.
It really does. You can't come home every day because I get home some days and my son he just got his permit to drive,
Mm.
and I'll get home and I swear he's waiting for me to pull in that driveway so I can take him driving. So at first I was like, well, we got to do something about this because I don't want to do this every day, right? And so we made an agreement. I say, so every other day I'll take you driving, and so it's like Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. He knows
Oh,
I'm going to take him driving, even though we didn't go this Friday, but we went yesterday
oh,
because I know I was going to do this today.
yes, yes,
And
yes.
but
Commitment.
he's waiting, and my other boy son, he goes with me too when the other one's learning. Then the one in the back is observing, the younger one, because he's
Yeah,
going to be getting his from me. So, and just like you said, observing. So I
yes.
got I got this one kid learning to drive, and then I got this other kid in the back, like, yeah, I'm next, right? And so and so I got to set this positive, while I'm
Yeah.
teaching him how to drive. But spending that time with those boys, when we're in
Mm.
the car, we having a whole bunch of conversations about different things, right? Like, well, when you become a man, you need to make sure you keep your face shaven, keep yourself neat, and when you talk to a girl, you don't want to be yelling and screaming, and you don't want to be punching on her and doing all that because
Mm.
think about your sisters. What would you do if somebody
Mm.
treated your sisters that way? So, and we have
Yes,
conversations just about everything. The conversations about just getting a job.
yes.
One of my boys just got a job at McDonald's, and
Oh, yay,
his
congrats.
first job, and he was so excited about it that I think
Oh.
3 or 4 days before he started, he put the uniform on, just walking around the house with the uniform on. So I say, Dad.
Oh,
So I say, see, that's a good start because he was really ready to go to work. So I'm happy for him. So he's learning to be productive. So I really kind of talk
yeah.
to him. I say, a good time right now would be for you to start your 401k. So that type of stuff there. You say if you start
Yeah.
now, you'll retire by the time you're 40 or so, and you will have plenty of money. Unfortunately, McDonald's doesn't offer a 401k. But that's a starter
Oh,
job. So, but
yes.
but yeah, the men need to step it up. They really need. I keep going back to the full time dad, not the part time dad, not the
Yes.
sometime dad. I'm gonna come pick you up. And another thing, keep your promises.
Mm.
Keep your men.
Mm.
Keep your promises. When a kid is sitting there at home, you tell them you're gonna come and do something, and you don't show up and call. That is devastating.
Ooh,
And
gee.
and the trust.
Mm.
I mean, the kid will forgive you so many times, and then they start saying, "Well, my dad ain't gonna show up." They don't have any trust in you, and that's extremely important.
Yes.
Your word is your bond.
Yes.
The kid is looking at you. You need to make sure that when you make a promise to your kid
Mm.
that you're gonna do something, even if you're not living, make sure you keep your word because it's
Promise.
extremely important. I'm gonna leave it at that.
Wow.
Uh,
That
all
was
right.
awesome. Oh gosh. Thank you. Oh my gosh. I mean,
Oh,
this
no
is
problem.
so deep. We could even go on and on, but we'll save it for another day. Oh my God.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you so much for
Right.
joining us today.
Oh, no problem. I'm glad you had me on the show. I'm so happy I was able to do it.
Yeah.
It really was an honor to do it. And I was like,
Oh,
well,
thank you.
I can't wait to do this. And you know what? And I'm not even nervous.
That's good, but you can't be nervous. No.
Well, like, I'm not even nervous. I feel so comfortable, you know.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's how it's supposed to be. When you're having
Yes.
tea with Katriel, you gotta be comfortable.
I just want to say, whenever you come on with Katriel, make sure you got your
You
teacup.
got your tea, girl.
And have something in your teacup, right?
Oh, you finished your tea? That was fast.
Yeah. I got a
Oh
little bit
man.
left in there, but very little.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah.
so much for joining in. Can you let
Well,
the viewers know how they can reach you in case they want to reach you? Like maybe some people have questions about this topic and, out of discretion, you're like, ooh, I
right.
like what he's saying. How can they reach you?
Well, you can always reach me on Facebook. My page on there is going to be Earl Bradley, Bradley. I also have the original one gospel. I have another page there for that. That's basically in reference to my music and everything.
Right.
You can email me. Emails the original one gospel. That's D with the letter D, like you see.
That's
Original one gospel at yahoo.com.
perfect.
Those are ways that you can reach me if you have any questions, or just get on Facebook and hit my page up, and hey, that's how we do it nowadays. So
Right.
yeah.
A dad, everyone, Mr. Earl, a father, a foster
Yeah.
father, and everything you can think of. So, these conversations are very important for us to have in the community. So if you have any questions and you don't want to come to our mailbox to say, hey, Katriel, can you talk about this? And it's about fatherhood or about just being anything that has to do with a guy, a dude, you can connect with him and he will be sure to answer you. So thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your presence and giving us wisdom.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you
I hope I helped somebody. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.